Thanks for joining me. This is Danny, and welcome back to my Real Tech series, episode 36, and part 2 of the PneumaticCraft mini-series. Today we are going to be getting into Tier 2 pressure, that is to say advanced pressure, in PneumaticCraft, which is going to allow us to pressure up our tools and weapons that we've already made to make them even more crazy and powerful. And also, it'll allow us to get into some of the more advanced things in PneumaticCraft. However, the road to get there is somewhat long, but trust me, it's going to be fun. It's a fun road. The mechanics in this mod are actually quite fun to play with. So what we're aiming at today is creating a Tier 2 compressor, which would be the advanced compressors, and also to make some advanced pressure tubes so that we can generate more pressure and hold more pressure in our network. So first of all, let's just take a quick peek at what this path is going to look like before we jump into it. So if we look at the compressors, so far we have made just the regular old air pressure. This has the limitation that it can only go up to 5 bar of pressure. Now we want to be able to go up higher than that, so we're going to have to get into advanced air pressure. There are a few different options that are open to us. One is to make this advanced air compressor, which is similar to the air compressor in that it takes coal or other furnace fuels in order to generate air pressure, but it requires this advanced pressure tube, which we're also going to need in order to hold that pressure in our network, because the tubes that we had can only hold 5 bar of pressure. So now in order to do that, we're going to kind of fall into a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but trust me, it's going to be a fun one. So I'm actually going to skip the advanced air compressor and go right to the flux compressor. It allows us to use RF to generate air pressure, and we have some RF available in a network, but it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But for the most part, the path to get there is pretty much the same. So here's the rabbit hole, right? Anything that we do is going to require 2 things in order to get to this next tier. First of all, we're going to have to make advanced pressure tubes. Second of all, we're going to have to make printed circuit boards. So if we look at the advanced pressure tube, we can see that in order to make the advanced pressure tubes, we need an assembly controller. It's a bunch of little machines that kind of work together in kind of an assembly line sort of thing in order to craft certain things. It's actually a really fun machine to watch and to craft with. We'll get into the details of this as we put this together, but just to show you the rabbit hole, we're going to look at one of these things. Every one of these requires a printed circuit board, which also we noticed the flux compressor also required these printed circuit boards. The printed circuit boards can be made in an assembly controller. Obviously, we're not going to be able to do that because we need the printed circuit boards in order to make the assembly controller machines. So there's an alternative way to do this, and that is with etching acid. So first of all, we're going to have to craft this empty PCB. Oh, also, by the way, the etching acid hurts when you fall in it. And we're going to have to jump into it a couple times. So this will be a fun experience. So the empty PCB is just made in the pressure chamber like so. It's just green plastic and compressed iron. So we need to make plastic, right? We haven't gotten into plastic yet. So in order to make plastic, we're going to need this plastic mixer. Liquid plastic is something that we need to make in a thermo-pneumatic processing plant with LPG and some coal, right? So this isn't too hard to make. The LPG now, in order to make the LPG, we're going to need a refinery. That's kind of the short version of what we're going to be doing today. Obviously, I'm going to cover more details as we do the stuff so that you understand it a little bit better. But to get started, to get to the point where we're making plastic, these are the things that we're going to need. We're going to need refineries in order to refine oil. We're going to need a vortex tube. Now, a vortex tube is something that generates heat and cold. We'll see how that works. We're going to need a regulator tube module. We're going to need some redstone stuff and some blocks to insulate the refinery to keep it nice and toasty and warm. And then to make the plastic, we're going to need this thermo-pneumatic processing plant, another vortex tube, another regulator tube module, and a dispenser upgrade, a plastic mixer, and a lever. And then we're also going to need some more pressure tubes. Now, these aren't too terribly expensive, but they're a little bit expensive. Really, the expense comes in just the complexity of it and putting it all together in a way that will work. So that is what we're going to do right now. So while you were away, I did upgrade my network a little bit. I've got 4 air compressors now, and I may actually add a couple speed upgrades to some of these, which will cause them to produce more pressure faster, however at a slightly less efficient rate. I've also added a bunch of pressure tubes here, which I'm going to camouflage shortly, just so that we are able to basically tap into our network whenever we want to. We're later going to be adding a second row of these for our high pressure network, because we're going to be maintaining a low pressure network and a high pressure network at the same time. So what I'm going to do, we're going to need a pressure tube there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pneumatic wrench and I'm going to right click on the end of that, and that will actually block it off. So you can do that anywhere. You can open up or close sides of the tubes so that you can have it just terminate like this. We're also going to need another one somewhere around here. I'll just stick another. I just want to do this now before I make the final connection. Oh, that's a camouflage applicator. There we go. And then we can make the final connection here. And hopefully we don't have any leaks anywhere. It sounds like we have a leak somewhere. Oh, I forgot to connect these guys. Oops. Oh, crap. Okay. There we go. Now I need to put the safety tube module back here. Okay, so then I'm going to take the camouflage applicator. I've got all the blocks I need in my inventory. It's just spruce wood and olive wood planks. I just picked them up when I broke these blocks. So then these will all be camouflaged. So like at any point, we can just place a tube here at any place along this line and it'll just connect in there. So it's kind of like we'll have little outlets wherever we need them. So I've got everything cleaned up. If I want to add another outlet and not lose very much air, what I can do is I can just place two of them quickly. I'll lose a little bit of air pressure, but that'll cause a loop, and then I can take my pneumatic wrench and just cap off one of those, and then I can break the other one. So that's how we add our little outlets without losing too much pressure. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start refining some oil with our oil refinery. So if we place a refinery down in the world and take a look at it, we'll see that we've got some problems. It's not going to work all by itself. There's not enough heat and there's no input fluid. We have no oil in here and there's not enough refineries. We need up to 2 to 4 refineries. So what happens when you place these refineries is the more you have, the more outputs you can have. So the maximum is 4, so if we place all 4 refineries, we have 4 different outputs. And if we look in our book, we can see what those 4 outputs are going to be. For 10 millibuckets of oil with 2 refineries, we get 2 millibuckets of LPG and 4 of diesel. Now we need the LPG, so we could theoretically do that. However, we only get a yield of 6 millibuckets, so we lose stuff. The more refineries we have, the more we get. With 4, we get all 10 millibuckets of something. And these are listed in order of lightness. LPG is the lightest, gasoline is next, kerosene is next, and diesel is the heaviest one. We'll find a way to reprocess all of these into LPG if we decide that LPG is the only thing that we really want to use. We can also use these fluids from other mods as well. So if there's another mod that produces LPG for us or whatever, we can use that too. Now PneumaticCraft spawns oil in the world. There are puddles of oil or like lakes of oil underground. They're usually deep underground. Sometimes they're not as deep. We can find that oil using a seismic sensor. So if we look under base concepts and we look at oil, we'll see that it's telling us that our oil lakes spawn usually deep underground, and we can use a seismic sensor to help us find it. And then we can use the gas lift in order to pump it out. But it is also compatible with oil from other mods. So we have an oil pump over there from Immersive Petroleum, and we'll be able to use that oil. So we need to pipe oil into this thing, or we can use a bucket or a jerry can. And the jerry can actually holds 10 oil, and that will put the oil in here. Now the refinery does not require pressure, but it does require heat. And in order to produce heat, we're going to need pressure and a vortex tube. I am also going to have an automatic kind of shut-off system set up here too. Don't lose any pressure. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to open up the end of this tube. And then I'm going to place this regulator tube module at the end. The regulator tube module allows us to restrict the amount of pressure that's allowed beyond that point. So how much air it's going to let through, and at what pressure point it's going to stop letting air through. This is very useful when you're moving from like a high pressure network or an advanced network to a low pressure network, but it's also useful in order to just turn things on and off. So it's similar to the safety tube module that we set up last time, that takes a redstone signal, and based on that redstone signal, it will allow a certain amount of pressure through. So if you remember the formula, it started out at 7.5, and every bit of redstone, or every power of redstone that we gave it, would bring it down 1. So it ended up that that 5 redstone brings it to a threshold of 5, so that it'll let air out at 5. So over here, what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be giving this a full redstone signal when we want to just not allow any air through. So I can break this now, because we have that module at the end. It won't let any air out. So then what we're going to do is we're going to place this vortex tube here. And you will see that one side is red, one side is cold, and what it's doing is it's taking air pressure, and it's basically splitting the air between cold and hot. So one end ends up cold and the other ends up hot, and this side needs to be open to air so that it can let out cold air. The hot side is going to heat up our refinery, and as you can see, we're already starting to get some stuff here. So it's taking oil, and for every bit of oil that it takes, it's going to create a little bit of diesel, a little bit of kerosene, a little bit of gasoline, and a little bit of LPG. But what we want to do is, so this vortex tube takes a lot of air pressure, and that's the reason why I upgraded my network here, and we now have 4 of these air compressors, because we need a lot of pressure for this thing. So what we want to do is, when this guy is done refining oil, we want it to stop giving this thing air. So that is what we have the comparator and the redstone for. So we place a comparator. Let's place it there. And you'll see that this thing is outputting a full power of 15 because this thing is running right now. So what we're going to have to do is not gate it. And that's why we have this redstone torch. So we're going to put a redstone torch here, which is essentially going to shut this thing off. So now that this guy is getting redstone, you can see that the pressure is dropping. So if we look at applied redstone, it says 15, threshold is 0.0 bar. This guy, the pressure is dropping and the temperature is also dropping. When this guy drops below 100 degrees, it stops refining oil. So it has to be at least 100 degrees. The higher the temperature, the faster it will refine. Now you can regulate this with a redstone signal similar to what we did over here with a potentiometer. If we only want to give this a little bit of pressure in order to like bring it right at 100 degrees. If we want to kind of preserve our air in our network, it'll be a little slower, but it'll work. And then we won't waste as much when it's done refining, because as it's cooling down, it could be refining oil. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to set this up differently. Let's do this. Let's put the comparator there. And then let's run the redstone like that. So that should shut it off, shut our redstone torch off, and now we are letting all the air pressure through that we want. Now we can put a potentiometer right here if we want to only let a certain amount of air pressure. Now this guy is getting warm in order to process the stuff, but it is also losing heat to the air. So we can actually insulate this guy. That's what we have these olive wood planks for. And I'm actually going to use slabs too. As long as there is some block in the space, it will basically insulate it. So if we look down, we can see we're hovering around 117 degrees, right? So if we basically wrap this thing up, And then in the front, I'm actually going to use slabs so that we can access these things. Whoops. And now we should see that the temperature is going to go up. So we're at 129 degrees right now. Now if we had more compressors here to keep up with the pressure, because what do we have, 3.5 bar here? And plus we have a very long distance that the pressure is traveling, so it does lose a little bit of pressure by the time it gets here. We could get this much hotter. But for now, you can see it is processing the oil quite a bit faster than it was before. And we're at 129 degrees, and we're getting all the stuff that we need. So we can use all of these fuels to generate pressure if we have a liquid compressor. There's actually lots of other uses we can use these fuels for as well. We can use them for other mods, like for instance the diesel we can use to power like our immersive petroleum boats and generators and such. And all that. And then we can also, as I said earlier, we can process these into the next higher one, so the next lighter one. So we can process diesel into kerosene, kerosene into gasoline, gasoline into LPG, and we'll take a look at how to do that later. So now that we are producing LPG, we can start moving toward making plastics. So the first machine that we're going to need in order to make plastic is the thermo-pneumatic processor plant. This will allow us to make liquid plastic. So the thermo-pneumatic processor plant is actually useful for a lot of things. Actually, if we look in JEI, we will see that if we throw LPG and coal in our thermo-pneumatic processing plant and it reaches 100 degrees, the same as the oil processing, then we will get liquid plastic. Now if we click on this, we will see that there are a lot of other things that we can do with this as well. Some of them require pressure, some of them just require temperature. This is the machine that we would also use in order to process our diesel into kerosene, and we can also actually produce lubricant by using diesel and redstone in here. That is how we make speed upgrades in this mod. Now I actually already have lubricant from Immersive Petroleum, and it does work with this mod as well. So now that we have more than a bucket of LPG, we can go in here and right click on that top one. Is it a liquid? Is it a gas? I don't know if you noticed, but the advancements for this mod are actually pretty fun. We can right click on it, and then we will see that we have that in here. And then if we throw some coal in there, which I don't have, if we put some coal in here, it'll then show us that it needs the temperature to be up to this point. So when it's not there, it's just at the bottom. When it's here, it shows us where the temperature needs to be, which that happens to be 100 degrees Celsius. And it's showing that we don't need any pressure, but we do need heat. So we're going to need another vortex. We're going to do the same thing here that I did in the other one. I'm going to remove that, and then I'm going to put the regulator module there. And then we're going to put a vortex tube right there. So now when you place the vortex tubes, the hot side always faces you. So when you want heat, when you want to put heat into a machine, you're going to have to click past that machine. And now this guy is heating up, and we are getting some plastic. Hooray! So our first liquid plastic. Actually, I'll just throw that in there. Now here, I'm just going to put a lever there so that we can turn that vortex tube off when we don't need it. Because again, it takes a lot of pressure, and it's producing more heat than we need at the moment. Unfortunately, this one doesn't output to a comparator, so we'll just have to turn this on and off manually right now. Of course, there are ways that we could detect what's going on inside there, like with automated redstone or something like that. So now that we have the liquid plastic, we can start making our plastic pieces. So for that, we're going to use the plastic mixer. The plastic mixer does not require heat if you're creating plastic sheets. The only time it requires heat is if you want to melt a plastic sheet into liquid plastic. However, we're getting liquid plastic over here. So if we want this machine, now we could use pipes to pipe from here to here, but if we use the dispenser upgrade, of course, we can look over here to see what upgrades we can add to this thing. If we add the dispenser upgrade, it will automatically output to nearby machines. So that automatically inputs into here. So now in order for us to make plastic pieces, so we need, for a lot of our crafting ingredients, we're going to need these different little plastic sheets or whatever. is we need to give this guy some dyes. So red, green, and lapis, or blue or whatever. And then we click here to get things out of it. We can also lock a selection in place if we want a machine that's set up to make a specific type of plastic all the time. Like if we want it to do that for automation. We can throw red dye in there, green dye and lapis, and it'll consume a little bit and it'll mix it in. So now, whenever we need plastic, oh, how is this thing so hot? Oh, oh no, it's absorbing heat from that. That's not ideal, but whatever, it's fine. We've got our oil refining, we have our plastics, and next time we're gonna be jumping into some etching acid in order to make these PCBs that we're going to be needing for our assembly machines. This is a very involved and immersive process that takes a fair amount of time. But once we get our assembly machines set up, not only will they be fun to watch, but they will also allow us to craft the things that we need for all of our tier 2 stuff. So I hope you join me for that. If you do have any questions or comments or ideas, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And of course, if you did enjoy this, don't forget to click the like button and to join me next time. Thanks for watching.